Hello friends, Jennifer Pearson here. Today we're talking decks, I'm going to have to say, with limited nudity. There are some true decks that truly don't have any nudity in them here. And let's talk about those first. So if you're, and the reason I'm even thinking about this is because of YouTube advertising guidelines. So YouTube has declared the right to advertise or monetize anybody's content anytime they want, however they want. It's in their new terms or something. And at the same time, they limit the advertising that they will do on your channel if there is content that would be considered inappropriate by advertisers. So you have to click what kind of content you have. Now, most of us would consider the nudity that is in tarot decks to be pretty, your standard tarot decks to be pretty mild and intended to be archetypal, not sensually or sexually titillating in any way. But one of the things I wanted to attempt on my other channel, my love channel, was to have enough decks, because I don't like to use like one deck over and over and over again. So I try to assign different decks to the different zodiac signs, and even rotate from month to month within those zodiac signs to really limit the amount of flesh exposed in those. And again, I understand why YouTube is doing this, and I actually support them to some extent in doing this, except declaring that they can monetize anybody's channel anytime they want and however they want. I don't like that, but there was an awful lot in the past of content that was, I would call, I don't know, gratuitous, and I don't even know what you call it. Would you call it gratuitous nudity? Probably content that would have been better off on some other platform that wasn't intended for the general public. And given the amount of human trafficking and exploitation of people, sexual exploitation, it seems like it's escalated. I mean, I've questioned myself here in the United States anyway, I don't know about elsewhere. But I have questioned at times. I thought, if I were a young woman now, as opposed to when I was young, where I felt pretty free, I didn't anticipate being victimized, except beyond the wanting to stay aware of your surroundings and all of that basic stuff. But I did things like camping alone and stuff like that the people who I would encounter sometimes would tell me that they would never do that, or they would have a fit if their daughter were doing that, even though I was I was in my 20s and 30s when this was happening. So yeah, so I'm kind of I'm trying to moderate the amount of nudity that occurs online, at least on YouTube. I don't care that much about my website because I figure there's not a ton of people who are going to go there. And if they're coming there, my assumption is that they are adults. And they'll learn quickly that, you know, we're not talking or doing anything on there that's all that exciting. Even if I were to do some sexually oriented readings, I would probably put it behind something. You know, I would put it behind a password, or, you know, you can only get the link if kind of a thing. But I will certainly use any kind of standard tarot deck, and a standard tarot deck has some nudity, particularly in the Devil card, often the Lover's card, sometimes the Strength card, the Star card, the World card. I think those are the main ones. Not sure what else, but we'll see some of them in here, actually. So, decks that are what I would call true decks without nudity. Animal decks. Don't have human nudity in them. And sorry about all my throat clearing. It's something's going on today. Probably allergies. So let's see. I'm just going to name some that are in my my collection, and you are going to see some. I can pull a couple out right off the bat that work well for love readings in particular. Some of the decks that I'm going to read off to you are not suitable for your general reading, but the Mystical Cats, and I find this deck is quite good for love readings. It's great. It works great. So, yeah. So, Magical Cats and the Mystical Dog, or no, those are the Mystical Cats and the Magical Dogs. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time. Most of these are very well-known decks. Some of them are not, but many of them are. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time showing you. It's a bunch of dogs jumping into water. Oh, and there's a sweet. Is that the Two of Cups or the Lovers? That's the Lovers card. This is one of the Court cards, you know. So, and again, this deck works pretty well. I'll do another video that will be about the decks I use for different signs, just for interest's sake. So, those are the two that I use for the love readings, but I don't think I have any other animal decks out here, but other, let's see, animal decks. The Wise Dog Tarot, I believe, I don't know, I think actually the Wise Dog did become mass market. The Wise Dog Tarot, Guardian of Night, which I don't believe is, I think that's an independent still. I don't think it was picked up as a mass market. And the Guardian of Night is animals, an animal-based deck. The Animal Wise Tarot by Ted Andrews. And are those my only animal decks that I have in here? I guess it is. Also, abstract decks. For example, the Hidden Waters Tarot, if you can read it. The Fractal Tarot, if you can read it. You know, if you can really use it for a reading. I tend to use things like that more for, like, chakra energy, looking at chakra energies, as opposed to doing a standard tarot reading. Landscape-oriented decks. The Majestic Earth. If there are nude people in there, and there might be, I think there's one that has a woman in the water, but you can only, or maybe it's a man in the water, you can only see their shoulders, I think. And so if there if there is nudity in that deck, it's so small and so minute that you can't, you'd need a magnifying glass, and so doing a video, nobody's going to be able to see it unless you hold it right up to the camera to point it out. Let's see, the Tarot of Trees is another one, which actually is not bad as a love deck. But I've chosen not to use it that way. I think I used it once, or I tried it once, but I thought, you know what, it's not going to be very relatable to people watching the video, so unless you're tree lovers. And okay, so what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to read off some decks that most of which will be in these two piles that are true decks without nudity. Not even that level of nudity. Okay, let me just show you briefly. Hope I'm not lying about the Prairie Tarot. I think the Prairie Tarot is perfectly nudeless. Okay, we have the Tarot of Physics. This is the backs. It's a bunch of physics diagrams. And I actually did use this as a in a love reading for Aquarius, the sign of Aquarius. And they loved it. I mean, it got the most views of all of my love readings as I've started up that channel. The views have been very slim. So, and this, I believe, is still available on the site, the Tarot Garden. It's essentially a homemade product. You know, it's like a plastic contact paper over parchment, and there's little nubs on them, but it is what it is, and it's completely without human nudity or humans of any kind. The Prairie Tarot. And this is an independently produced deck. I think you can get it on Make playing cards. You know? And this is a great deck for fire signs or those who are ambitious. It works probably better for career readings than love readings, but it also works fine for love readings. The Tarot of the Golden Wheel, which is based in Russia. It's a beautiful deck. Whoops. And what they wear is as interesting as anything in the deck. So it's almost like artists who are into garb create decks without nudity because they're using it as a platform to show off beautiful garments. The Hoodoo Tarot. And I don't have the book handy. This is the backs. I'll put a list of them down in the description box. Just a general list. And, whoops, how did she get, or how did that happen? Both all of the decks that I have and that don't have nudity, and specifically the decks that I'm showing here. This deck I think will be great for love readings. I'm going to have to take a little Well, it will take a little practice. I'm not taking any time. I'm starting to use them already. But it will take a little time to get familiar with the characters in the deck. The only oracle deck I have here is the Enchanted Map. And that is not because I do have other oracle decks that don't have nudity. I think that it's actually more common for oracle decks to not have nudity in them. But this is the only one that I would use for love readings, partly because it's, what, 52 cards or something? 54 cards. So it's got more cards to it and more kind of what I would call scope in terms of moods and situations than a lot of oracle decks. The Paulina Tarot is another one completely without nudity. What we're going to look at here in a second is we're going to look at these decks that come close. And then I'm going to use, but in a very strict sense, art without nudity. And I feel like this is another situation in which you have an artist who likes to play around with fashion and style. We got somebody peeking out here. And costume. A lot of her, of the figures in here appear to be wearing costumes. For example, here's the devil. So that's the Paulina. Oops. And I have a little note to myself in here. Anybody else do that? Stick little notes about the deck in their box. Tarot of the Southwest Sacred Tribes, which is out of print, but not in high demand, so sometimes you can find it. Oh dear. You're going to hear a ruckus. I've got my dogs out in the world, and they've heard something. So this is a deck in which there is no nudity. Whoops, where did it go? Next is the Dark Mansion. Dark Mansion Tarot manages to get along without any nudity. Part of me doesn't believe it and wants to go through it one more time to look. Does the world really not have any nudity? Could be, did the devil, I don't know, did the devil card? Maybe no, because she has, see, I'm not believing it, but she has skeletons instead of people. So there we go. This is also an independently produced deck. And the Gift of Life Tarot, because this is, you do have kids like on that card there. But otherwise, the adults are dressed. Even this guy. It's clear he's got his shorts on. And this is more common. There is one in here that is from, I'm guessing, India, like one of the street people or untouchables, that is a little disturbing, and what she's wearing is very worn down, but you really can't see anything. I'm looking for it now, but But mostly it's people in everyday situations. And even, for that matter, the street person was in an everyday situation. And they're all very well clothed, often ceremonially clothed. Oh, and I'm not finding her, so we're not going to worry about it. Because, as I said, she is technically, covered. So those, well, I've got my 2 landscape decks here, but for the most part, let's see if I can prevent an avalanche. Those are the decks that actually don't have nudity. So I have here the Augenblick, or however it's pronounced, Augenblick, I think is how it's spelled. And this is old landscape and building photographs. So if you can read this, and I'm going to try, to be honest, I'm going to give it a shot. If you can read this as, in my case, for a love reading, then this is a deck that does not have nudity. Oh, if I can get it back in its little bag. And I don't know if that deck is easy to find or difficult to find. It is an indie deck that's out of print. I actually got it in a trade. And so this is the Majestic Earth Tarot. And again, most people have seen this indie deck. It again is landscapes mostly. And when there are people, oftentimes they're very, very small. Well, now it's clear to me. My problem is it's definitely allergies because I'm getting ready to sneeze. Okay. So decks that are good enough for me, that I will accept as being without nudity. Let's see if I can get these things out of the way here. This is a deck. I have 2 decks here that are primarily silhouettes, and the first one is the Everyday Tarot. And so what I've done for the rest of these decks is I've pulled out some of the cards that are, kind of technically nudity, but for the most part, either they're very partial, and you'll see in some of them that in my standards, I accept side nudity, and I also accept silhouettes or situations in which there's very minimal detail within, there's just not much in the way of definition. For example, to me, this card has a lot of definition with light and shadow and details. That has a lot of definition, but she's not, she's covered the parts that we would take to be titillating or assume to be titillating are covered, but clearly she is like wrapped in a sheet or something, and she's not wearing clothing. So technically she is, technically and not technically, she's nude. She's nude, but she's not exposed. And then there are these kinds of images where, you could say, well, maybe she's wearing something. I don't know. You would tend to, I think most people would tend to assume that she was nude, but you can't see anything. It's a silhouette. And that's true of other, again, you would make an assumption here, but there's just not very much there. Same thing with this Strength card. And that is the Everyday Tarot, and it's all silhouettes. So the other silhouette deck, whoops, oh goodness. So I'm going to have to gather these cards that just dropped because I have dogs. And you know what dogs will do. I've had casualties on the floor. Alright, and the culprit is in the room. Okay. So the other deck that is primarily silhouettes is the Quantum Tarot. And I don't know to what extent I'm going to try to use this deck for love readings. I don't know how well it will work. I haven't tried it yet. And I don't know how well other people would get along with it. But, so this is the sort of thing. And again, I would assume, that this person is not dressed, actually. And he's got a bright light in a rather suggestive place. But this is the King of Swords, so don't try it, right? Don't try anything with him. There are a few cards in this deck. But again, I think on camera, if this was sitting here, you probably wouldn't be able to see that this was even a person. You know, let alone down here. But even there, I would have to hold it up really close for you to see that that's a representation of a constellation, the mythical figure, and that it's female and she has bare breasts. Same here. Can you tell? Can you even tell what that is? Maybe now you can tell. Can you see? So it's just very ill-defined, foggy kinds of images. This person has no definition. Again, you would assume that the person doesn't have clothing. There's no evidence of clothing, but it's an outline. So that's true of a couple of other of these, of the cards in this deck. And I'm calling it good. And we've seen this one already. This is the only card in the Dark Fairy Tale. So this is from the Dark Fairy Tale Tarot. And that is the only image that could be seen, that could be called approaching nudity. And that's what it is. It's approaching nudity. She's not wearing clothing, but she's also not exposed. In this little deck, sweet little deck, the Mystic Fairy Tarot, you might say, well, there's no nudity in that. In fact, there were a bunch of these. Like, I thought that the Dark Fairy Tale didn't have any, and I thought that the Dreaming Way didn't have any. But when I go through them, I find things. So there is, you know, the figure being the lower figure doesn't appear to have any clothes, but again, is not exposed. There's this little creature, but again, not really exposed. So that doesn't bother me. I'm going to be using these decks. This deck, the Arcanum Tarot, again, I consider it a nudeless deck, but there are these figures here that look as though they're nude, but they have no genitalia. There's nothing there. Take that however you want. I'm not sure that alters the meaning or not, or is some sort of punishment in the lower realms or what, but then she actually is wearing something. There, top and bottom, she is wearing something. This is like, you know, being hung by your G-string. He is wearing something there to cover himself up. So he's not wearing very much, but the part that we're most concerned about is covered. This is a super bizarre sun card. It's like they doubled the creepy baby and made it two of different races. Both turned golden. but again, it doesn't bother me. Especially because it looks like they're covered in gold paint. They don't even look real. There's this, again, nothing showing. And there's kind of implied nakedness there. They're clearly not wearing any clothes, but they're so stylized, it doesn't matter. It's only showing up to their shoulders. We don't see anything on the woman. I'm going to put these back because there's several cards and they're slippery and I don't want them running off on the floor for a dog to chew on. So what do we got? We've got a few more. This is the Dreaming Way Tarot. And this is the only thing that really even comes close to nudity, is in the Devil card. They're sideways, you can't see anything. They actually look like they're commiserating. I don't know if this is supposed to... This is a very childlike deck, very youthful deck. And so that devil figure, I don't know if that's a mother or if it's a teacher or what it is, this nasty person up there that has caught them both. It does kind of have a different take on the Devil card. And let me put this in here. I better do that with this card too. And these quantum. Tarot cards. Okay. We have this deck, which is the African Tarot by this publisher. Very reasonably priced at $20 or $19.95 or something like that. And I intend to use these, even though you have, for example, on the Strength card, and there are other cards like this, and she looks fine. Again, there's like no definition. You know, there's just, it's not a silhouette, but it's similar to a silhouette, except that if you get close, and again, most of the time the card isn't going to be this close, but if you get close, you see red nipples. And it's true on the males. Do I still have the Emperor nearby? The Emperor also. So it's kind of equal opportunity, red nipples, on both the man and the woman here. But again, so minute a detail, I just don't think of it as a problem. And to show you, maybe I need to show you what an actual problem is. And one of my favorite Rider-Waite-Smith decks actually has that problem. Hang on just a second. It's the Tarot Illuminati, and it's the Star card. Let me see if I can find it at all quickly, or if it'll be elusive to me. You can see here, I don't have a problem with this, but you can see here that this artist is into anatomy. You know, that's part of his thing. There's the World card. And I don't have a problem with that World card, but, you know. I can see how having that flashed before a 13-year-old or something is maybe not the best thing on a YouTube channel. Even though we say that it's not for children, we know what children can get into. So this is the Star card. And to me, she just has a really bizarre posture there. And I've seen other Star cards where it's like, what are you doing? What? But anyway. So those I think would be more problematic. Or if YouTube was evaluating your video, could be more problematic. Here we have side, is all of the rest side nudity? I'm not sure about this one. This is the Norse Tarot. I don't have the box, I don't think anymore. It's packed away. It's the Norse Tarot by Clive Barrett. And this is the only female nudity we have, is the side. And then we have these guys that are in their beds, but you don't see anything. And we have Loki being punished here. It's hard to tell what's going on, but that is what's going on. And you can't see any bits that would be considered problematic, even though technically that is certainly nudity. We've got hair coverage, which is used in some other decks as well to prevent there being complete nudity, especially like in the World card. There's another deck I intend to get that uses artful use of hair to prevent full nudity. And here we have the Son of Water, and he's got that loincloth there, but you know, it's, to me, that's essentially side nudity. This is just back. I'm not that worried about the back, but again, there's just kind of a loincloth look. Really, the only thing that comes close there is this one. Tarot of Enchantment. Many people might say there is no nudity in this deck, but again, what I would call side nudity. This is the Hanged Man, I believe. Yeah. Suspension it's called, but it's the Hanged Man. Caught in amber. So technically, there is that. And then I've got the Green Witch Tarot specifically because it didn't have nudity, quote unquote. But again, artful use of hair. You see, you know, there's the star. She doesn't care if she's clothed or not. She's coming to save the day. So, so these are the decks. Actually, I'm not using all of these decks for my love readings, but most of them I do intend to use for my love readings. So these are some, and the ones that I'm not, it's not because of the nudity in them. For example, the Vision Quest. Did I even tell you that this was the Vision Quest? I don't know. The Vision Quest. I find this deck a little bit difficult to read with, and that's why I'm not going to use it. Not because of this guy, who I don't think is a problem at all. I'm just looking here to see if there's any others. I like the Everyday Tarot, but again, I don't know how relatable it is to a lot of people, but I can certainly read with it. The Dark Fairy Tale I will use in moderation because it's dark. But I won't be using, I will not be using this, even though I'm sure it would give great love readings, because it has in the past. But again, with current restrictions, etc., it's like, no. I don't have to use that deck because I have so many others. So there it is, my my video about decks that have limited or no nudity. Feel free down in the comments to leave if there's a deck I left off. There are other decks certainly that I looked at that I didn't decide to purchase or use for whatever reason. You know, just I didn't like the art style or something. Did I not? I don't know that I read. The Baseball Tarot is another deck that it's out of print, but you can get it pretty cheaply used. It does not have nudity in it. I wouldn't use it. I think of it as a career deck. I wouldn't use it for a love deck, but it has zero, nada, no nudity in it whatsoever. So as an end, let me just read this list. And so these are decks that I consider. I call them nudeless decks, but you know, like I include this that way as well. So take it however you will. I talked already about the decks over here that are truly without nudity in them. And then there are these others where you can make your own judgment. And I have not sorted this list in that way, so I'm just going to go ahead and read it to you. The Dark Mansion Tarot, the Prairie Tarot, the Enchanted Map Oracle, the Norse Tarot, the Paulina Tarot, the Vision Quest Tarot, Tarot of Physics, Mystical Cats Tarot, Magical Dogs Tarot, Tarot of the Southwest Sacred Tribes, Tarot of the Golden Wheel, Hoodoo Tarot, Forest of Enchantment Tarot, Wise Dog Tarot, Guardian of Night Tarot, Tarot of Trees, Fractal Tarot, Hidden Waters Tarot, Baseball Tarot, Gift of Life Tarot, Animal Wise Tarot, Everyday Tarot, Augenblick Tarot, Majestic Earth Tarot, Quantum Tarot, Dark Fairy Tale Tarot, Arcanum Tarot, and Mystic Fairy Tarot. So there you go. Anybody else who's looking for a deck with limited nudity, I've done a little research for you. Here's the result. All right, everybody, take care. Bye-bye.